Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, he's a Master Sommelier and one of the owners of a group of restaurants in Colorado, including Frasca Food and Wine, which won the 2025 James Beard Award as Outstanding Restaurant in America. Here's Bobby Stuckey.
I want to begin by saying hello, but I would usually say hello, chef. What do you say to say hi to a Master Sommelier?
Just hello, Bobby.
Okay, hello, Bobby. Let's move on to congratulations. James Beard Award as America's Outstanding Restaurant. It's the fourth category you and or your chef have won. You've got a Michelin star. Did you always want to run restaurants? And did you ever think it would come to this?
Well, I didn't always want to run restaurants, David. From a young age, I always wanted to be in restaurants. I found the restaurant industry at a young age as a bus person. I loved it. It let me under the tent. It was a great inclusive occupation, or at that time, a high school job that made me feel valued, and I really loved it. And then I worked at some great places. I don't know if I ever had this burning desire to be an entrepreneur. But what happened was I was at the French Laundry working for Thomas Keller, which was, may I say, an awesome opportunity and a great job. And I could have done that forever, but we wanted to move back to Colorado to be closer to my wife's father, my father-in-law, because we had lost my mother-in-law, my wife's mom. And 21 years ago, there weren't jobs like what I had had at the Little Nell in Aspen or the French Laundry to continue my career path in the Front Range of Denver or Boulder or Golden. There just wasn't opportunities like that. So I was a restaurant person. Instead of going to work for someone else, I had to create my own job, and that was the restaurant Frasca. And because of that, I say I was a reluctant entrepreneur. So I never had this burning desire. I'm going to open restaurants. I'm going to go after Michelin stars. We started with one restaurant, and then that was just one step at a time.
Well, let's go way back to your first exposure to restaurants, to food. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Scottsdale or Phoenix, Arizona.
Was food an important part of your life as a child?
Yes. My mom had a catering agency. My mom was, before that, a really ambitious home chef. She was dear friends with people in the Phoenix culinary arts. She loved it. So we had that all the time. Friends would come over and they were really like, what is the production going on here for taco salad? Could be the most basic Tuesday night. My mom would be obsessed making the greatest tomatillo salsa from scratch. This is in the 70s. I had that around me. I had mom and dad that liked food and wine, which was rare. But most importantly, I had parents that when I got a job in a restaurant and came home happy from that job, they supported it. And they said, good for you. In the mid-'80s, that was not the common tone for kids coming up. Parents wanted their kids to be doctors, attorneys, bankers, whatever. They were like, right on, be the best bus person you can be. My parents were really great that way.
Was it a high school job for a few extra bucks and you were washing dishes, or?
No, it's a little bit more colorful than that. I say that my parents were really positive, and I gave them a lot of opportunities to prove their positivity. So I gotten kicked out of Jesuit school, and you knew my dad was on to positivity and looking at the glass half full. He's like, well, you got promoted to be a public school kid, showing a lot of ambition. Jesuits usually like to really work on screwballs like you. So for you to not be invited back, man, that's a lot of ambition. Bravo. He goes, we're going to do three things. He goes, you're going to get a job. I said, okay.
How old were you?
14. He's like, we're going to get you a job. You're going to go to a public high school, but you have to have a GPA to get into a college. He's not reaching for the stars here. He's like, he has this book of college admissions. He goes, look, some of these schools, if you have a 2.2, you get in. So you just got to get into a college, not a high-end college. And then he goes, and then you got to have an extracurricular activity. He goes, I would recommend cross country because no one gets cut. I ran cross country. I'm still running. I did the GPA to the best of my ability, which was hard for me. Got into Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. That worked out great. Loved my experience there.
Which is also an excellent college. I mean, it's not like you went to Schlabotnik Tech.
Yeah, it was great. And it was perfect for me. I'm a big advocate of it. And then I started bussing tables, and I'll be bussing tables tonight. So all worked out.
I guess it did. Did you ever end up in the kitchen?
I didn't. There'd be times where I'd help out back there, but I was a disaster and it wasn't great for me. I really followed that path of bus person, waiter, head waiter, help the manager who was the wine buyer out, and then found the love of the wine world. We didn't really know what was going on. And I think it was probably 92 or 93, 92. I was waiting tables for Flagstaff, Arizona, where I was going to college, a very progressive wine restaurant called Bricks. And they had this envelope. I think it was like in the back kitchen office or like at the bar one day when they're doing admin work during the day. And it talked about the quartermaster sommeliers. And I was like, oh, this seems like a cool thing. And they're like, that would be great for you, Bobby, to focus on. You like wine, you go to the wine classes, you're engaged. And that's how I got into the sommelier path.
What's quartermaster sommelier?
That is the organization that does the examining in a 4-tier system: intro, certified, advanced, masters.
You had some familiarity with wine?
Well, I would go to wine class and I would just sit there as a kid watching the waiter's wine class. I just liked it. I mean, look, I love wine, but as a kid, it wasn't that I loved wine. I didn't have this ethereal moment where like the clouds opened up and an angel came down and gave me a glass of 61 Latour. It didn't happen that way. It was more like me listening to the manager teach the waiters when I was a bus person about the wines on the list so they could be better. And I noticed that the waiters that knew the wine list took care of their guests better. That was my intrigue. They were able to do their own form of hospitality better than the waiter that did not pay attention.
Well, for one thing, they're breaking through the fear and confusion barrier.
Yeah.
We're terrified of wine as Americans when we dine out.
Yes.
Basically, you're offering someone a life raft, are you not?
Yeah. And you could just notice, you know what's going on in the restaurant. You notice those servers that really pay attention. They're better with their guests. It was inspiring and boom.
What was your path from there?
I just kept waiting tables and then went and took my intro level sommelier. And then I went back to Scottsdale and worked for a couple that I had worked for before. Now they had their own restaurant. I really wanted a mentor and they were great mentors and they helped me chart a goal from A to B to C. And then they heard of a job for an assistant sommelier position in Aspen. At the same time, I was applying for the assistant sommelier position at the Phoenician, there where I lived in Scottsdale.
Which is a very prestigious resort.
Yeah, very. And back then, that was its heyday. And I had the opportunity to go be assistant somm there or go to the Little Nell in Aspen. And they, through their guidance, they said, let's do the Little Nell. And it was a great experience for me.
I want to talk about that in a second, but before we do that, one day you don't know wine. The next day you're watching waiters be told about wine. Then you start taking some courses. Now you're a sommelier. I mean, at what point do you realize, hey, I know my shit?
I still don't know my shit. And I've passed the Master Sommelier exam because the great thing about wine is every year it changes. So there's more growth every year. It's like a snowball. Knowledge is like a snowball that keeps growing and you need to keep that snowball getting bigger. So I don't think I ever was like, hey, I know my shit. I knew that I was studying really hard on my own and then trying to increase my proficiency, putting my hand up for any volunteer work I could do for management to improve myself. But when I went to be the assistant at the Little Nell, I knew how much work I still needed to do. And I was, okay, well, they're going to give me a shot as the assistant. I've got a boss. I have my mentor back in Scottsdale. I have a path that I'm on. There was a good wine community in Aspen that I could join study groups with. And I just kept trying to chip away at it. They say that saying that 1,000 hours. Well, it's amazing if you spend 1,000 hours at 10,000 hours at something, really becomes part of you.
And we'll be right back.
Tell me about the Little Nell.
The Little Nell is a hotel in Aspen, Colorado at the foot of the mountain. And when I went to work there 30 years ago, it had just been the first hotel in a ski area in America to get 5-star, 5 diamond, which was a big deal back then. And the team was supersonic. And I say this in a great way. From the general manager, Eric Calderon, to the fearless food and beverage director, Connie Thornburg, to the chef, the team there was so good. And you know what they were really good at also? They were good at mentoring people coming into the organization where you had this safe environment to grow in. And it was awesome. And I spent 5-6 years there and it was a very great place to blossom.
Well, you became the head somm there, didn't you?
I did.
And don't be modest. You won a bunch of awards and things. You got noted nationally for your wine program. What did you do?
I spent a lot of time with the teams on education. We worked a lot of education. I figured I'm growing myself. I'm going to grow the teams with me. It was funny. I was in Aspen for the Aspen Food and Wine Classic, and someone came up to me on the street and said, "Oh my God, you used to teach my wine class in 1997. Thank you so much." And I don't think I knew back then we had created a really great education environment.
How do you teach wine? What are you teaching me? Are you teaching me to close my eyes and taste something and tell you that it's a 1970 what from the left side of the field where the cow never peed, or what?
No, you really have to break it down to basics. You do most of your education. Let's say if you're in college, you have 100 level, 200, 300, 400 graduate school. You really set the foundation very strong on the 100 level. This is not about you showing your theory domination. This is about you getting someone to understand these varietals are native to this region. This is what happens in this region. This is what happens when they transfer somewhere else. Basics, basics, basics. If you spend a lot of time on the basics, you include more people. The people grow at a better rate. And the ones that are more advanced, they still benefit from it. And it just keeps building.
How soon and how much is the focus on which wine goes with which food and why?
Well, a food and wine pairing is really a great synergy, and it's a great, mathematically a 1 + 1 can equal 5 if done right. It's great, but you have to remember, does the customer actually want the food and wine pairing? That you might have a customer that's having Hamachi Crudo, but they don't like white wine, and they only their life is happy with a big glass of Cabernet. Well, listen. That's not going to be a fun food and wine experience. I'm not here to tell them that. They can do whatever they want. But if the guest is willing and the wine team is proficient, you can provide a lot of fun. Last night, I worked at our restaurant in Denver, Tavernetta. It's summer, and we're starting to get some summer sweet corn. Colorado has a real great program of sweet corn, Olathe corn, and we did this cannelloni, this stuffed pasta with taleggio and sweet corn. And it was like one of those dishes, if you poured a glass of Pinot Bianco from Friuli with it, it was so good.
But what about explain to me why that particular wine and what it does together.
Well, you need something with enough body. The dish is decadent, but the dish is summery. And so you need something decadent, but not too oaky. Pinot Bianco and Chardonnay work really well with corn. They just are perfect.
Okay, we're going to get back to the specifics of food and wine in a sec, but I want to go to the next stage in your career. You went from Aspen directly to the French Laundry?
Yeah, I got hired to go to the French Laundry from the Little Nell. In typical Thomas Keller first classness, he realized that I was coming there at the end of, which is perfect. I was finishing the season at the Little Nell, because they have a season with seasonality. So I would end April 15th and start with them right then in May. But Thomas knew that the new guy replacing me, Richard Betts, who's still a dear friend of mine, had Aspen Food and Wine Classic, which was a really big event for Aspen. And he didn't want to leave the Little Nell high and dry with me not there for this guy's first deal. So Thomas, on his own dime, flew me back to Aspen 2 months after I had started at the French Laundry to work food and wine with the team at the Nell and Richard.
Well, he is a known class act, is he not?
Yeah. He and Laura just think that way.
Well, how'd you end up there? I mean, did you apply? Did he know of you?
They were quietly looking for a wine director, and they wanted to, the wine program there had been mostly California, and they wanted to build an all-world wine list. That's what I had done at the Little Nell. My name came up. Tell you, it was a really fun fit working with them. It was great. Contrary to what everyone wants to say, contrary to TV shows like The Bear or books written by journalists like Anthony Bourdain, my job at the French Laundry was the easiest job I'll ever have because Thomas and Laura set an example that excellence was the goal. Everyone understood the goal. So as long as you were there with the right attitude, everything was pretty straightforward. And the guests were excited to be there at that time. It was nuts.
Okay, elephant in the room to some extent in what you just said. The fact that their kitchen, their restaurant was, as you describe it, a wonderful place to work, stands in contrast to some awful horror stories that have come out of the restaurant business and that you, frankly, I think have addressed in your advocacy for restaurant workers. Am I wrong?
Well, I do. I think you need to be consistent and courteous in your leadership. But if you set the expectation, I love our industry. It is beautiful. Are there some parts that need to be improved? Yes. But there's always the person who, look, have we had times where chefs, old school chefs, yell and scream, and that doesn't jive with modern day, whatever? 100%. But there is still room to say, we want to be excellent. Here are the goals. It's laid out. Let's do that. And for those who either don't show up every day ready for that goal or don't understand the goals, that can be really hard for them. But it's a lot easier if people are self-reflective and say, hey, here's the path. It's spelled out. That's a lot easier. You're going to go work at other places that don't have it spelled out, and that's not as easy.
You left the French Laundry, as you said earlier, for, in essence, family reasons. Why Frasca?
Well, we didn't think we were going to have 6 restaurants. I do not want to be in a region that my wife's family's based on, like they're Abruzzese. I don't want to argue with her grandparents on recipes. I say that jokingly, but I love the region of Friuli. So Frasca is based on the region and the cuisine and the culture and the wine of Friuli-Venezia Giulia, or FVG. And Friuli-Venezia Giulia is that region north of Venice, below Austria. It was at one time the southern part of the Austrian Empire. It is the western border of what we in the United States call Eastern Europe, but over there they call Middle Europe. What is now modern day Slovenia. We're on that border. When I started studying wine over 3 decades ago, that was Yugoslavia.
And why did you pick that region?
It's dumb luck. Like how I study for wine theory is I read about the wine in the region, the culture and the food. And I became mesmerized. I loved the wines from there. And then I started peeling the onion skin back and just loved the diversity of culture is unheard of. Alsace has gone Germany, France, Germany, France. Yes. Friuli has been the Austrian Empire up until 100 years ago. It has been the northern part of the Roman Empire. It created the Venetian Republic when the people from Grotto scurried out into the lagoon. It has so much cross-pollination culturally. And with the port city of Trieste being so important for 400 years to the Austrian Empire, it just created a really, for me, beautiful culture to study and read on. And I just was fascinated.
Back in a moment.
Okay, so what are the wines of that region? What kind of wine do you get out of that climate?
So out of that climate, you have the northernmost sandy beach of the Adriatic, that beaches of Grotto and Trieste. Within 40 kilometers or 25 miles from that, you're in rolling pastoral wine country. And within another 40 miles, so within 100 kilometers or 60 miles, you go from sandy beach to ski areas like Aspen, Colorado in 1 hour. And because of that, it creates a great aromatic white wine like the autochthonous varietals, Malvasia Istriana, Ribolla Gialla, Vitosca, but then it also does great with these varietals that came 250 years ago from Napoleon, like Chardonnay, Pinot Bianco, Sauvignon Blanc, Merlot, Cabernet Franc for red. So you have a lot of delicious Bordeaux varietals, Cabernet Franc and Merlot grown there that have been historically part of the culture for 250 years. And they just live symbiotically really well.
So you decided to open, obviously the food of that region spoke to your business partner, Lachlan McKinnon Patterson.
100%.
Who is your partner, the executive chef.
Yes.
You guys met where? At the French Laundry?
Yes. And he really nowadays runs our wine company. He's still my equal partner with our other partner, Peter at Frasca Hospitality Group, but he really runs Scarpetta and our importing company, Benvenusa. And we have a culinary director of our company and an executive chef of Frasca. But everyone is, Eduardo Vallilobo, our culinary director, we met him in Friuli, so he worked in Friuli. We had a sous chef going there next week. We had a manager that just got back 2 weeks ago, so we're always having someone over there.
I read that you said you wanted to open the best neighborhood restaurant in the world. You got your Michelin star, you got all your James Beard awards. Is that really the aspiration of a neighborhood restaurant?
Yes. A neighborhood restaurant can start as a neighborhood restaurant and aspirationally grow a little bit each day. And if you're lucky enough to be there 20 years later, evolve into maybe something that can still be a neighborhood and still be special.
Well, how is it a neighbor? I mean, what makes it a neighborhood restaurant?
That a family can come in and sit at the bar tonight and have a plate of prosciutto and a piece of frico, maybe the most humble dish of Friuli, but very important to us, and a couple glasses.
What's frico?
Frico is Montasio cheese from the Carnac Alps, steamed potatoes and sweated onions. They can have that at the bar while they're waiting for their kid to get done with swim practice down the street. And they're right there next to people coming in for a Michelin-starred experience. And they might be doing that with us for 2 decades straight. You know, you have a connection to the neighborhood when we were at the Beard Awards, and the award that we were nominated for was like 4.5 hours into the experience. We're the second to last award announced. And I'm getting texts from my neighborhood guests sitting at the bar at Frasca. They went in there to live stream on their phone the Beard Awards while having dinner, rooting for the team.
Aw.
That's a neighborhood restaurant.
Do you feel Italian? Or, well, people have to understand Italy is 21 separate regions.
Yes. Do I feel Friulano?
Yeah.
It's funny. I would be so humble and honored to say I feel Friulano. There are Friulano people who say Bobby and Lachlan and the Frasca team are our United States ambassadors. I feel so lucky that I have such a beautiful relationship with the wineries and the restaurants and the families and the producers of Friuli and the Friulano government. You know, we've done work with the Friulano Tourism Board, and I feel very lucky to have those relationships. It's awesome.
Okay, but how Colorado are you? I've read that you make a point of saying you're doing this cuisine through, I don't know if you use the word lens, but it boils down to through a Colorado lens. Explain that to me. I mean, is it a melding of cuisines and ingredients? What is the Colorado influence on this particular Italian/Austrian cuisine?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, we've now 21 years later, we're more Friulano than we were when we started because things are now locally here for us. We have farmers now that grow specific from seeds that we've brought, specific chicory, depending on the year, specific herbs that you don't have here in Colorado, but would really work in Colorado. They've just never been brought here.
Like what? What?
Okay, there's a great thing called in the springtime called sclopete. Sclopete or sclopit is like thyme meets maybe a little bit of a oregano, like a bright oregano. It's like every housewife in Friuli at a winery gets packets of it to make frittatas in the spring. It's like so Friulano. We have a guy growing it for us. There's a type of chicory called Roses de Gorizia from the town of Gorizia. We have a guy growing that for us in the winter. So there's all these types of herbs and vegetables that we now have access to that work here. But at the same time, there's things that we have that we can't get there. Like they might have mushrooms that we can't get, but we have really great snowbank morels that can, when the season presents it properly, we can use and things like that.
Looking at your menu, I'm fascinated by some of the combinations. Capoletto affondato, the first listed ingredient is burnt flour.
So that's a toasted flour. And so there's a nuttiness, there's an umami to it, but there's a brightness to it too. There's a summery brightness to it.
You serve it with green and white asparagus, sheep, ricotta, and spring brodo. Brodo is?
Broth, Italian for broth.
Would I find that back there?
There's a lot of like toasted polentas, toasted pastas, like that, flours in there, corn and polenta. Corn was brought by Columbus, and they used to say northern Italy was the piatto grigio, the gray plate, before the girasole of corn showed up. But we have a huge culture of polenta there. We have different types of, in this case, toasted flour. You might have spinach, green spinach-based flours for pastas, things like that. There's also a lot of times you'll see a combination where you'll see either poppy seeds or you'll see certain spices that you would think were for dessert in entrees, especially during the holiday season.
Like what?
There's a gnocchi called gnocchi sucine, which is a gnocco, one big gnocco, one singular, stuffed with a plum with cinnamon on it and brown butter. Sounds like dessert. It was such part of the culture there. You see it during the holidays a lot. You see a lot of spices in their sausages, like in their musetto or bravata, things like that. Horseradish, like you would see in Austrian food, you see horseradish a lot as a condiment for prosciutto.
Prosciutto with horseradish?
Yeah, you take prosciutto and then it's called raffino in Italian or creme in Austrian. Take a little creme fraiche, freshly grated horseradish, maybe sweeten it with, if it's the time of year where apples are in season, you might slice some apples in there and you put that on your grissini with your prosciutto sandagnelli. It's like amazing.
Wow. I notice you have a lamb sausage dish, salsiccia di agnello. Agnello being lamb, I guess.
Yeah. We have great lamb here in Colorado.
Are you making the sausage?
Yeah. Yes.
You also do a tasting menu,
which I can get with pairings.
I think the concept of pairings scares people because they haven't got a clue. So let's talk about some of that. Like, what do you pair with what? You've got a dish called, I'm going to mispronounce this terribly because you got a bunch of letters that I don't know what to do with, but Sacchi, Sagggi. It's a pollen tart with trout.
Sacchi.
Thank you. You're serving with what? It looks like a champagne.
Yeah. Champagne is such a part of the culture, not just in Friuli, but Northern Italy. They drink more grower champagne than the French do. They just love starting off with champagne. So it's a very Friulano way to start.
Is it a French?
Yes.
Officially a champagne, or is it an Italian sparkling wine?
No, it's champagne.
And why make that choice?
Because it's refreshing. It lets the trout stand on its own without collaborating it with wood. It's delicious.
But why a French champagne? Can't you do something Italian?
You could, but I think when you have something like Le Court Gobillon, that champagne, it's better quality for the money. It's like delicious.
I'm fascinated by some of these other pairings. You do a dish with Maine lobster. Astice e zucchini?
Astice is lobster e zucchini. So zucchini and lobster.
It says zucchini custard, yeah.
You've got agretti, tarragon wild ramp, and we use Maine lobster. We paired it with a Gruner Veltliner from the Wachau in Austria.
Which is what?
An aromatic white wine from just over the border in Austria. It's kind of like our varietal Friulano. It goes great with herby things like zucchini and agretti and tarragon. It's delicious.
You've got a rabbit dish. What do you pair with rabbit?
Well, that rabbit dish is technically aquarello risotto or rice with a little pocket of great rabbit ragu and arugula and Castelmagno cheese in the middle of it. And we're using a little Fairlot. So Fairlot is an aromatic white wine from Friuli.
There's not a lot of rabbit compared to the other ingredients. So what are you pairing with or working off there? Is it the rabbit?
You're really working off the risotto is this bright green herbaceous risotto. So a Friulano white blend that works with that has texture, works great.
So you go to dinner and you don't know crap about wine and you're afraid. The sommelier says, what would you like? And people generally just pick the next to least expensive wine in a particular color group. What's better advice?
I think no matter what restaurant, if it's fine diner or a casual restaurant, you should go and ask for help. People want to help the guests. If someone says to me, this is what I like, I'm nervous, we're here to get you there.
But is it embarrassing to say, look, this wine list, I can't do the $90 bottles. This is what I like. What do you got that ain't $90?
I think a good wine professional will be able to find them. We call it a lateral. It might not be the exact same thing, but something that drinks like that.
You have grown to a pretty substantial group of restaurants. How do you do that and not take your eye off the centerpiece?
Well, I wish there was a system to it. It's very hard because at any given time, you might take 3 steps forward and take a step back. At any time, one restaurant might be firing on all cylinders and doesn't need anything and is doing great. Of course, you're there. Then another restaurant might have 2 people fall in love and move to Santa Barbara and you lose 2 key people. Happens all the time. So I think the best way not to get overdone by anxiety is, first of all, admit that you're not going to be able to take your eye off the ball. You're going to have to be in your restaurants all the time, as much as you can. What I try to do, and everyone has their own approach, but like last night, I worked at Tavernetta. I was scheduled at Tavernetta. It's right next door to Sunday Vinyl. Of course, I might go next door and check on the team at Sunday Vinyl, but my job last night was to work for Tavernetta. I'm not trying to get in my car and go high point for my restaurant. I want to be there and present for that restaurant. If you do that one day a week to that restaurant and one day a week to the next restaurant, if you commit yourself to that, you're going to see a lot. You won't have your eye on the ball 7 days a week, but you can get glimmers of things and you can coach on those glimmers.
Like what? What goes south? What do you walk into your restaurant and say, we shouldn't be doing this?
Any number of things. You've got humanity trying to keep your standards, and it's not someone's fault, but they might choose to do an audible to your standard. They might think for whatever reason, and then you have to courteously, confidently, and consistently say, no, we're going to move this pendulum back to here. Thank you for your thoughts, but this is the vision of the program.
Is fine dining dying?
No, I think that's something journalists have used as low-hanging fruit as long as I've been in my career. Ever since Wolfgang Puck put smoked salmon and caviar on a pizza, we thought the death was around the corner. People like to say that, but no, I mean, Frasca is having its best year ever.
Look, I talk to a lot of chefs. I talk to a lot of restaurateurs who point to post-COVID and economic issues and say, at the very least, it's in trouble. Do you not buy that?
Oh, I'm not saying that our industry is not harder than it's ever been. That is different than fine dining dining. Guests are still going to fine dining. There are new guests every year who find the love of fine dining. Now, are there people that are very loud minorities not like racially, but like minority, like I'm a food writer and I only like casual restaurants, so that's all I'm going to advocate for. That's fine. But you have to realize that would be like being a music critic that doesn't want to review the New York Met Opera. It's okay to be a bar band, 3-piece band in a bar and be a fan of that. And at the same time, understand the complexity and the brilliance of the Met Opera. Food is the same way. And I do think what you're hearing from people is not that fine dining's dying, but it's harder to do our job than it's ever been. That is true.
And within the whole, let's use the music analogy, there are periods of time when rockabilly is the thing. There are periods, it's been a while, there are periods of time when grunge is the thing. What's the thing now and in the near future for dining in general in America? Is it some form of casual? Where's the sweet spot right now?
Well, I think about like when I started 30, 40 years ago, you didn't have to click all the boxes. If you had a decent decor, but it wasn't very nice, solid food, an average, even a non-existent beverage program, you'd be okay. Nowadays, customers expect high design, great quality food, great beverage program, and they want it on a deal.
Well, how the hell do you do that?
It's hard as all get out. As I said, you got to work a lot harder. Costs have gone up. I think part of it is education. We need to be able to tell people, like, no, you don't get free bread. If you want great bread, it costs money. If you want someone to bake your bread for you every day, fresh in-house, you should be willing to pay for it. We should not be baking great bread so you have great bread and then giving it away for you for free and then you asking to take 2 loaves home for free. Like, no, the old days where you bought bread, horrible bread, and you served that with a butter pad, that's free. That's different than what you're getting now.
I actually spoke with a very interesting restaurant owner. Anita Jessincani owns a fabulous Indian diner in Houston. She said to me, she thinks people should go out to eat less, that it ain't cheap and you ought to cook at home so that when you go out, you're willing to pay for the kind of experience you need to get at a restaurant. Should people eat home more?
I think people, based on their own family budgets, that's their decision. But what I do think is be more discriminating, eat at places that have great product, great food. I'm always amazed how many people want to go eat inexpensive, not very good food multiple times a week versus, hey, maybe once every 3 weeks, go eat at a great restaurant.
Which inevitably takes us to America's love affair with chains. Got any thoughts?
You know, it's funny. My wife is in women's fashion, and I'm going to use a designer that I know is at the store. Loewe shoes are the thing for women right now, high-end shoe. I think it went up $100 this year for that shoe. And I asked my wife, is there pushback? She goes, I sell a pair or 2 of those every day. No one mentions the price. If you raise your roast chicken $4, it's pretty much World War III. Americans do not want their gas prices or their egg prices or their restaurant prices to go up. Their Nike Air Jordans can go up and they'll chalk it off to whatever, but they just don't understand what we do.
Will they ever? Can you remain optimistic?
I just pick a different battle. I don't think it's really in their wiring. I don't think they want to know. People want to have their restaurant experience and they want us to look like the swan above the lake, just gliding. And they don't want to know how much your little feet underneath the water are paddling so fast. They don't want to know that. They're like, don't bother us with that.
So do you have to make creative decisions about, I won't put this on the menu because it breaks the bank, or?
Yeah, or you have to charge accordingly and say, look, this is what it is if you want to eat this.
Plans for the future? Hopes for the future?
My hope for the future is that we get back. We should be in this renaissance moment where we understand our industry better. If you're dining in it, if you're working in it, if you're thinking of having a kid work in it, realize that it's a great industry. If you're new to the country, we're here for you. If you lose your job in tech, we're there. We're going to pick you right up. It's really a great industry, and I hope people realize the beauty of it.
Well, your James Beard Award speech, you basically said, we're open to anybody. You need a second chance, got out of the slammer and want to start your life over. If you're a single mom in need of flexible hours to raise your kids, hospitality has a place for you. And I think that's a beautiful thought.
I love it.
And you've certainly brought a lot to it. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with me today. It's been a real pleasure to meet you.
Dave, my pleasure. I hope you have a great summer.
I plan to, and I hope you do as well.
I know. We're going to do a 4th of July little running race with my little brother tomorrow. It's going to be the Stuckey boys battling it out. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we're recording this on July 3rd. Good luck against your brother and good luck going forward.
It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be great.
And an update. I checked back with Bobby after the race. He told me he won, but he did point out that his brother isn't used to running at such a high altitude. And that's Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. I'll see you next time.